We are live. So, Soumya, you can start.
Right. So, welcome to the third edition of Placement Tales ECE 2023. I'm Shree, a part of the CMS Club, and I'm the moderator for today. We received amazing responses from our previous Placement Tales episodes, and we have invited an amazing panel of people from ECE, all in very different job profiles, to give you a better idea of the type of career you choose. We hope you get some solid takeaways from their journey and draw from their experiences to make your placement journey as smooth as possible.
Puneet, you're muted.
Okay. Welcome everyone. Puneet, fourth sem EC student here. I'm the co-moderator of the event today. So let's begin. I would like the panelists to introduce themselves and share their experience and their journey with us. Welcome panelists. So first off, I call upon Deepanjali Pandit.
Hello, hi guys. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Deepanjali Pandit, and I am going to be joining JP Morgan Chase & Co. as a full stack web developer. I got to know about this company, that this company was hiring through the placement cell emails. It was actually one of the first mails that they ever sent us. So we had to register through a link, and it was the first round was a hacker rank coding test, which consisted of 2 easy level coding questions to be solved within 1 hour time. This happened approximately in March 2022. So from this round, the shortlisted students were asked to give an online video interview. So we had to record answers of around 2 questions. This was basically to test our speaking and communication skills. All the shortlisted students from this round were eligible to participate in a hackathon. So this hackathon was called Code for Good, and this happens every year. This is the only way JP Morgan Chase & Co. Conducts their freshers hiring. So in the hackathon, we were grouped with 7 people from all over India. So it was a group of totally 8 people, and the 7 people we had never met before. They were from different states and different colleges, and all from different branches. So they formed groups of 8 people, and then they gave us training. There were many sessions that they conducted and a number of meetings, which were all during our ESA. So the main challenge was not the problem statement, rather it was the time management part. Prioritizing and taking these meetings seriously was one of the main things that I had to learn to do. And it was like the meeting was today and there was an ESA scheduled for the next day. So it all came down finally to just time management. The hackathon itself was conducted in around June, and there were subject matter experts and there were people from their team continuously monitoring how each person from the team was handling the job assigned to them. After the hackathon was conducted, we received a follow-up email from Placement Cell in around July, and in August they started our onboarding process. This event has no CGPA requirements and was not branch specific. The process is same for all engineering students across all branches pre-final year, across all branches and across all colleges, any city, like throughout India, the process remains the same. So just to summarize, there were 3 rounds. The first was the coding round, second was a video interview, and the third was a 24-hour online hackathon. So this was my experience. Yeah.
Thank you. Now I call upon Mahima.
Yeah. Hello, guys. First of all, I really thank CMS for, calling us again. Last time I remember I was on the other side moderating with Smrithi, and it feels good to be on this side this year. So to introduce, I have been currently offered at EY India as an associate consultant. And how did this process go about is we basically got a link. So this, we had like two tests. So the test was conducted on 2 different days. So the first test basically was an complete aptitude test. It had like your English, your logical reasoning, your quantitative ability, and your second round was basically your coding round. So we had like two coding questions, and one was an easy level coding question and the other one was a medium question. And actually here, to be honest, there are companies where when they give you I've experienced it in like while I'm writing the test, they when they give you a login period of approximately 2 hours or like 3 hours, each person gets a different question. So there are people who might probably get two easy questions, and there are probably people who might get like one easy question and like one medium question. So it completely depends upon what kind of question you get, when especially when companies give you a particular login window. So after this, I think 2 days later we got a short list of people which told us like, so and so people are qualified, and it was actually an offline interview. So a lot of people have given virtual interviews, so this was an offline interview. And basically our first round was a group discussion. So they give you like each group, I think they were divided, like each group was divided into like 10 people, and they take you to like different classes, and each class gets a particular topic for group discussion. And they are very like general topics, basic generic topics, and here basically they're testing like how well you can speak in a particular given a particular situation. And so after the group discussion, the next round was basically your technical round. So your technical round, they ask you upon so it depends. So they either ask you about your, some people were asked completely upon your resume, and some people had like questions based on computer networks. I think computer networks is one subject which plays a major role in CS, EC in most of the companies. I feel like that's a strong point where most of the students hold, like computer networks. I feel it's one of the most important subjects where, they ask you between TCP, UDP. And I feel like if you know these basic questions, pretty much they are happy that you know the basic of networking. And so I had a lot of questions upon computer networking. And since I mentioned AWS, Amazon Web Services, my interviewer actually asked me a lot of questions on cloud computing and AWS. So one thing I would like to specify is when you mention something in your resume, I don't think it's an opinion, but I feel that you should know each and everything mentioned in your resume. So I had also done an internship previously, and he asked me what's the difference between XML and HTML, because I work completely on XML. And then he told me like, can you write the like what is the basic structure of an HTML and what is the basic structure of XML. So you should be thorough with not only what technology you have used in your resume, but also there will be another technology which, like a differentiation, like how you have Verilog and VHDL. So I think like not only about XML, he asked me about HTML. And so this was completely like, this was how my interview in my technical round went. So he asked me about networking, and then he asked your particular interest. I feel like this is one question where most of them aren't able to answer. I think it's a very easy question to say like, the first question is, can you introduce yourself? A lot of us feel like, yeah, we can, what is there? We can tell this very easily. But I feel like you should prepare what you want to tell every interview to that particular to whichever company you're applying after the particular JD. So if they're asking you that you want a complete software engineer or like a full stack developer, you should say that your interest lies in these particular subjects, what you're doing, which semester you're in. And also, I think a lot of them ask you like, apart from your like your main course, your major course, are you doing any extracurricular activities? So this is also very important. I feel like apart from your main scope of curriculum, having an extra curricular activity on your resume or being a part of a club also plays a major role in some of your interviews, because they don't want you just to be a person who's always sitting behind the laptop or who's always studying. They want to know that if you can handle a particular situation, whether it's a tech situation or non-tech. I think speaking is very important. Your public speaking skills, your crisis management skills also plays a major role over here. And so that was my first technical round. My second technical round was, I think, with one of the managers. Or so there he tested my complete communication skills. He was like, given this situation, what would you do? How would you approach the situation? I feel like that's what, these are the kind of, when you sit for interviews, each interview gives you a different experience. For another one of my interviews, which was for a software development role, he asked me like, what are the since I was an EC student, he also asked me, since I was doing my minors, he asked me that, like, are you familiar with particular data structures? So if you mention that you know linked list, stacks, and queues, I think you should know the crux of how to form those, how to write your syntax of writing the linked list or like the queues. Because usually when people solve on lead code and everything, they are just writing the function. But when you actually, when they ask you, write the structure, you should write from, the basic of saying C out and CN. So that was one of my interviews. And yeah, so in my eva interview, he gave me situations like, what would you do in this situation? Suppose a big company is facing a risk, how would you handle it? So I think I was pretty much prepared, since since eva was a company where everyone was, really good with your orating skills. So putting your best orating skills is also very important. And I think that night itself we got the email, and that's how I got into eBay. And I think I'll give you more information about the other questions later in the QA section. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahima. Now I call upon Nidhi.
Yeah, hi, I'm Nidhi Prakash, and I'll be working at NatWest from July as a software engineer. So NatWest came around October, and we had first was a coding round, and even before the coding round, many companies shortlist people who are eligible to participate in the coding round itself. Quite often it's based on CGPA, but also other like your resume. I'm not sure what basis NatWest had shortlist us on, but in general, with respect to summer placements, they expect a high GPA, like around 8.59 and above. But placements, I think it's good to at least stay above 7.5. But above 8 seems to get you through the online round at least. So first we had an online round, and this was conducted on Metal platform, I guess. And it consisted of aptitude questions, CN, OS, DBMS, and also coding and algorithms as separate sections. So the coding questions were around medium level, I guess, and I always favored companies that had aptitude also in their coding test, in their first online assessment, as that's very scoring. And after this, we had our interview. It was only one interview for us. It was technical and HR combined. This lasted, I think it was a half an hour interview, but the slot was for half an hour. And there they asked a lot about. So you can play to your strengths in these interviews. I think you have to know how to guide your interviewer to ask you things that you know. For example, not with NatWest, but a previous company, one of the interviewers also had an EC background, and they were like, "Oh, which subject did you find the toughest?" And I said computer networks, because I actually found computer networks to be one of the more enjoyable subjects, and I did anticipate a question from my answer. So then he ended up asking me what's a router and why I found it difficult, which is exactly what I wanted. So even when you whatever you say, even if you don't know what they're saying, try to guide them towards something you know, like even when you speak about your projects. So even with NatWest, I think a common question that was asked is, in most interviews I've come across, in DBMS, they ask you what are joins and what are the types of joins. So stuff like that. And even in HR, they asked me stuff like, uh, would I be open to relocation, or where do I see myself in 5 years? All the things that you see online. An important thing I'd say would be to talk to your seniors, like belonging to that particular company a day before, so you know how the interview is structured. Like not all companies have one technical round or one merge round. Most companies have two technical rounds and one HR round. So yeah, my technical round was pretty simple, but it's also very luck based, I'd say, because with respect to NatWest, the students that had my panel, 6 of us got selected for a full-time role, whereas there was another panel where only 2 people got selected. So it's all very panel dependent and luck dependent and what they ask you that day. So it's better to accept these things and move on to the next if you don't make it, and just give your best in all rounds. That's it.
Thank you, Nidhi. Now I call upon Keertana.
Yeah, so hi everyone, thank you for having me here. I'm Keertana, currently in my 8th semester ECE department, and I'll be joining Samsung Semiconductors as an intern and for a full time role next week onwards. So, Samsung Semiconductors came to our college and we had to fill a form like for PSU placements, and they shortlisted around 300 plus people for the test. They offered 2 roles. One was a hardware role, and the other one is an embedded system engineer role. I applied for the hardware role. That was my first preference. So the test included aptitude questions and also just it was a course company, right? So it's just a bunch of technical MCQ questions, around 60 of them. And based on your performance on that in that test, they shortlisted around 20 of them. And there were 3 rounds of interview. The first round is a technical round. They ask you very basic questions related to the role you applied and a few questions from your resume. Basic questions like digital electronics, the gates and combination of gates. And I am specializing in VLSI, so I was asked about system Verilog and verification and design of a few test bench coding question. And the next round was a managerial round. And in the managerial round, they did ask me a couple of analytical thinking questions, like I wouldn't say riddles, but somewhat like them. So you have to be quick with those responses. You just can't take your own sweet time to think. And also, if you don't know any question, it's just better to say, I have no idea, or I'll look into it, rather than just bullshitting about it or going around the bush. So, and in the managerial round, everything's based off your resume. So you should be thorough with your resume, and you should make sure that you put the projects which you have done. So when they ask questions, you should get into the specifics of a project so they understand that you know that they know that you know about the project and you've done it. And yes, they do ask about your internships if you have done any and any courses. Uh, I don't think I haven't done many courses. I've just started one course and I'm yet to complete that. And the last round was an HR round. And in the HR round, they usually ask you if you're planning to pursue masters. And if generally the response is no to get a job, but you should calculate, like you should not tell them, oh no, I'll be jumping for masters in 2 years or 3 years. You should take your own time. You should be like, it's in the future, so let's see about it. You should play smart a bit over there. You should not be honest completely. And that's my experience. That's it. And my suggestion is just be thorough with your basics and be thorough with your resume also. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Keertana. Now I call upon Smrithi.
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much for having me. As Mahima said, it feels very nice to be on this side of the panel, after all the stress. So, I am currently interning at Unbxd. My full time is also there, and my role is customer success manager. So I was very clear that I wanted a non-technical role because I didn't particularly like electronics as such, and I didn't want to pursue a coding line of work. I prefer people interaction and client-facing things. And I had done my internship. I had been interning part-time at a blockchain startup for over a year in sales and marketing. So I really liked the job profile that I was doing there. So I was clear on not wanting a core or technical job. So Unboxed was the second non-technical role that came in, and since the number of non-technical roles that come in are very few and far between, it comes once a month or so. So I started applying outside as well, and through LinkedIn and AngelList and things. So there also I got one interview and one offer. Apart from that, coming to the unboxed, interviews, we had an online coding test. Not a coding, it had coding, but I think that was a common test between like engineers and non-technical roles, everyone together. Then we got shortlisted based on our roles, and in college, we had like one full day of a test, group discussion, and a bunch of interviews. So in the test in college, it was very non-technical based. So there was a lot of like aptitude and a little bit of SQL, because my role and the business analyst role were the test was together, and the business analyst role is a core, database and data analytics role. So after my test, we had a group discussion where they asked questions about. The discussion was on, will AI take over jobs, human jobs, and is AI not a good thing? Like development in AI is not a good thing. Following which, I had two interviews. One was the customer success interview. So customer success is a very client-facing role. It's purely client interaction and making sure that they are able to derive value from the product. So I was given a lot of scenarios to solve on spot, and how I'll handle different client situations, because they're very high pressure situations. It was a purely resume based interview. They don't ask you anything technical because that's not relevant to your job profile. Then I had an interview with the CTO, who was also one of the founders, and there he asked, based on resume only again, and mainly he asked me about CMS and my time as the head and things like that. So I had a lot to talk about CMS itself. So that was pretty much it. And by the end of the day itself, they gave us the offer. So I'd suggest, if you're going into a non-technical role, I'd suggest applying to startups, because the process is faster and there are more openings for non-technical roles, and they hire in advance in college also. Now, I feel like for non-technical jobs, it's very important to have a very well-rounded resume more than anything else, because they have nothing else to ask you apart from your resume and your soft skills and your interpersonal skills. So like I had a lot to speak about, because I was I'd strongly suggest joining as many clubs as possible and being as active as possible in college activities and Atmatrisha and everything else. And since I had like organizational experience there, and I actively participated throughout my college life, that was a very big part of my college life. I had a lot to speak about in my interviews, and as everyone else mentioned, it's very important to like steer the interview in your direction and speak about things that so whatever they ask you, find a way or a hook to bring it back to something you want to speak about. And like they'll ask you very open-ended questions in the beginning, at least, so you can always drive the interview in whatever direction you want. Especially in the first question is always going to be introduce yourself. So when you're introducing yourself, end with something that you want to speak about in the rest of the interview. So if you're going in for a technical job or a core job, end with some project that you've done in that line of work. If you're going into a non-technical job, then end with like an internship that you enjoyed, or end with like a club or an activity that you really enjoyed, so that they further question you in that direction, because they're not going to jump from that to like something completely unrelated, right? Apart from that, I think if you're really looking for a non-technical role, start applying early on other websites as well. Don't wait for college placements, because the number of purely non-technical roles are very few. And yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Smrithi. Finally, I would like to call upon Pratap.
Yeah, hi. I'm Pratap Kygonahalli. So I'm in my final semester at ECEE department. So I'll be starting my work at Tejas Networks in the next week as a hardware engineer, and my full time is also there. So this was one of the first few core placement jobs that actually came into placement at campus. So how the process was, so they started off with an online test which we took it at home, and though that test was primarily based on your core subjects, like maybe you could digital electronics, analog, a bit of analog, and at the end we had an aptitude section as well. And based on the performance of that test, we were called for an interview. I think it was 2-3 days after the test was when we were when we were called for an interview. So, and this was a totally on-campus process where I think we started off at about 9 a.m. in the morning, and then we continued till the end of the day. So this consisted of 3 interviews, which was consisting of 2 technical rounds and 1 HR round. So in the first round, we had questions. So mine, how it was, they asked me questions from the test. So I would have to justify what answer that I had given in my MCQ online test. So that is something that you would have to be ready to, you should be able to justify that, okay, why did I answer this? Because technically you should be sound based on your basics and stuff. And then again, as everyone mentioned, we had questions from my resume. So based on what work, what internships I've done, and what courses that we've had in college, and my final year project. Since my final year project was very relevant to the role that they were offering, so there was more questions based on that. And so again, the same thing as Smrithi said, you would have to steer the interview based on your comfort and stuff. So as you answer, like let's say you say a statement like, I like maybe filtering. Okay, so the next question would obviously be, what is filtering? And what types of filtering do you have in digital signal processing? So that there'll be a connect between each question, and you'd have to kind of steer in the way saying that, yeah, okay, I know these concepts, and these concepts are what I would like to answer. And finally, so after the second round, again with the same thing, and with core jobs, I would say that you would have a lot of writing to do in front of the interviewer. Writing in the sense, like they would ask you a question, they would ask you to write a schematic or a diagram, or if it's a numerical, you would have to know the formula, and you would have to be like quick on your feet. Okay, you write the formula and be like, yeah, okay, this is the formula. Yeah, I put these numbers in these places, and I would be able to answer the question. So that's how a technical sort of interview goes through. And I think in the end we had a HR round where again it's the same, I think, generic questions that you would see online, where they would sort of ask you to, okay, would you stay with us, and what's your plan on masters? And that you would have to be diplomatic, saying that, yeah, come on, I think we all want to go for a master's, but like, getting a job is important. So you would have to be like sure with the way, say that, okay, yeah, it's planned for the future, and I would be considering my options further down the line, and that's how I'm at this job. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Pratap.
Right. Again, I'd like to thank all the panelists for taking the time and effort to join us and answering all the questions ahead. I hope you all have a great time. The comment section will be open, so if you guys have any more questions for our panelists, feel free to post it in the chat. We will cover as many as we can. So yeah, let's begin. The first question is, considering the 3 domains under ECEE, how should one specialize in each to bag a good core placement job? I'd like to ask this to Keertana.
So the 3 domains in ECEE are Wink, Space, and NICE, that is VLSI, Robotics, and Communications domain, like we know. And specialization, in my opinion, because we're still in bachelor's degree, it's just going to be very basic. We're not going to go in depth of the subject. So I think you should choose what you're interested in at the end of the day. And majority of the jobs, I mean, for core, they either come in VLSI or communications domain. That's what I've noticed till now, and if I'm not wrong. So I think communications domain, you should know your basics, that's it. And end of the day, it's the common subjects which matter and not the specialized ones.
Right. So as a follow-up, do they ask questions based on software if you're sitting for a core job interview? Pratap, could you answer this?
Yeah, so based on software, so let's say you're sitting for a core job, and you would have to maybe, let's say for example, you're making a system that cancels noise. Okay, let's say you're making a noise cancelling system. So you would have to, so you have the core knowledge, so you know how you would digitally process the signal, saying that, okay, I would apply maybe some sort of recursive method to cut noise. Okay, but you would have to, at the end of the day, implement it on a system. So having that software side, in the sense that you should be able to program and say to a computer that, yes, this is what I want you to do. So essentially, it all comes down to software and how would you like implement your core knowledge into a system. Even as a hardware designer, you would have to write code, like in the sense that I would have to write Verilog for an FPGA to reconfigure it in a sense that, okay, it should perform this function using these blocks per se. So having a good strong software or a coding base is sort of important for a core job as well as an IT job. That's my take on it. Yeah.
Okay, moving on to the next question. How can one build on their resume based on the projects, papers, and internships? And how would you suggest students to go about it? What sort of projects can one start doing as a student in second year? I would like to ask Smrithi and Nidhi to answer this question.
So projects, papers, and internships. So I'll speak about it from a very non-technical standpoint. I think projects and papers have no relevance if you want to go into a non-technical role, but internships really have a big part to play because you'll have a lot to speak about in your interviews. So internships will really allow you to explore and see what you really enjoy, and if you want, you can go, if you have the bandwidth, then you can go for like a part-time internship during your semester itself, and I definitely suggest doing an internship in your second to third year summer vacation, and your third to fourth year summer vacation, obviously. I feel like internship, it gives you a lot of hands-on experience that you lack in college, because college is always like ISA to ISA. You're just trying to get through the entire number of tests and projects and assignments, especially with the 5 ISA system. And projects, I feel like if you suppose you take electives in, first of all, take electives that you can easily score in, unless you're really interested in a certain domain. If you're not interested in any particular domain, then just go for electives that are scoring electives. Talk to your seniors and decide, and in those you choose projects that you can actually work on and you can actually learn and do. So like if you pick a subject that you like remotely enjoy or a little bit enjoy, then you'll enjoy doing the project also in that subject. So I think since you guys have like projects in all subjects nowadays, you can use those itself as your projects that you would use for your resume. Just make sure that you know what you're putting in your resume. Just don't take some project from your seniors, copy it, and then put that only in the resume. Just make sure that you know the details of the project. That's all. Yeah, Nidhi, you can.
Yeah. So regarding projects, obviously they're very important, and especially if you don't have an internship to show. I haven't done any industrial internship so far, but I'd highly suggest people do one, especially between second year and third year summer, because that time you don't really have the pressure of finding a job or preparing for placements. So if you can find something you can learn while interning, I'd highly suggest that. I regret not doing that. And between the summer between third and fourth year, if you can handle internships and your placement prep, please go for it. I've heard many people say that that's very helpful. For me, it was a conscious decision not to do that, because I knew I needed the time to prepare for placements. But just because you don't do it, you can't leave it empty. You have to have something to show in place of that. So with respect to projects, I feel like what we did through college, some of my electives had really nice projects that we could do. However, in the ECE department, I feel the expectations of your projects are much different, especially if you're sitting for a software role. Your competition is people from the CS department who, first of all, have been doing this for the past 3 years. And what I've observed is their projects are really good. And they are Yeah, so to keep up with that, you'll have to either do some personal projects on your own time, but another good way to go about this is to reach out to professors in college or departments under like these research centers in college, like CDSAML, and there's CORI, and there's also Center for Robotics and Automation of Intelligent Systems. So that's what I did both my summers. I think one after my first year. So what happens here is you have the discipline of doing the project and reporting to someone, and you have the guidance of a teacher. And if you're looking for to do your masters, you also have a rapport with the teacher to ask for a letter of recommendation later. And quite a few times, if your project is of good quality, you can get a good research paper out of this, which you can put on your resume. So I think the best way to go about this would be to reach out to a professor and do the projects. And also on your own time, maybe based on some online coursework, what you're doing, you can do personal projects. But what I've observed is that with everything that college, the load from college, the workload from college itself, you end up leaving that midway and not committing to it. Whereas if you are in a research center in college, you are held accountable for it. And sometimes you can do it for a grade as well. So the project I did last summer is for credits. So if you do it under the center, you can do it for credits as well.
Right. Thank you, Nidhi. The next question is doing minors necessary for placements? What are the pros and cons of doing minors? I'd like to ask this to Deepanjali and Nidhi.
Right. So I'm assuming that we are speaking about the computer science minors, which you will require if you're sitting for a software-based job. So a computer science minor would consist of 4 different subjects, uh, 4 courses of 5 credits each. So the data structures and applications, operating systems, database management systems, and design and analysis of algorithms. So these are the 4 topics that they cover, and these topics you will have to learn either way if you are going to be sitting for a computer science based job. So the decision is if you're going to learn it through the minor or if you're going to learn it on your own. There's no other way out. You have to know these 4 topics at least to be sitting to at least do well in the CS based roles. So they do appear in most CS related tests. But again, it depends on how seriously you take it, since it is along with your regular courses and the schedules might clash. It will be difficult to manage both of them. So, to summarize, what I would say is that you get consolidated material, which is actually very difficult to find online because there are so many resources. So, there is consolidated material for these 4 core subjects that you will have to learn. And all the regular testing, especially the 5ISA testing, will ensure that you are continuously studying for these subjects. But however, if you're taking it up, you have to know that it is difficult to manage and it is very time consuming, especially because there are other components like lab, there's a project related to the lab, and then there's lab viva. So a lot of other components also get added. So, yeah, these are the pros and cons of taking up a computer science minor. Concluding statement is that you will have to learn these 4 subjects irrespective. Yeah, I think Nidhi will continue.
So to add on to what Deepanjali said, yes, it's very, very time consuming. And I'm not sure how useful it is in terms of the knowledge you gain. It's depends on how seriously you take it. It's like your normal college course. It's exactly the same course that's offered to the CS students as their core, which are doing it with all the exact same rules, including attendance and projects and assignments. So my suggestion would be that get it over with in the summers of your first year, like summer after your first year and summer after your second year, or summer after your first year and the semesters in your second year. But if you go beyond that, I think I'd suggest you don't do it and spend your own time learning, because it gets really tough when you have to manage that along with your placement preparation. So it is useful in terms of the material, but then you end up uh, spending time trying to get marks there rather than actually learning in a useful way. But I've also, so I don't think it's necessary, but it's also a nice thing that college is providing that, because I've heard that for masters it might be pretty useful. Like if you are going to pursue masters in CS, it helps you justify why you're pursuing a master's in CS being an ECE undergrad. I'm not in the process of applying for my master's, so I don't know much more on that, but this is what I've heard from my friends. So if you are able to get access to this information and uh, study it in a more efficient way than taking minors, I'd suggest you do that. But otherwise, if you're taking minors, get it over with in your first 2 years itself.
Yeah, thank you, Nidhi. As a follow-up to that question, do companies ask for minor degree certificates during placements? Mahima, could you answer this?
Yeah, definitely. So, no, they companies don't usually ask you like a particular minor certificate as such. But if you're sitting for a CS or an IT interview, they do expect you to know these four subjects. That is, as Deepanjali said, CS, sorry, CN. CN is anyway a part of our curriculum. So that is also one of the major topics a lot of companies actually ask. Computer networks is one of the strong points as far as I've heard from CS kids as well as EC people. Computer networks is where most of them are able to like steer the interview, and they can show them, yeah, like we know the core subject properly. But no, actually minor certificate they haven't asked, but knowing these four subjects is actually very beneficial. I feel like you're initially like based, suppose if you take a subject like DAA, there are multiple types of sorting techniques. But in college, they not only teach you the sorting techniques, but they also teach you something called as time complexities. And this is very consolidated, like it is given to you in a structured manner. That's why I feel like doing minors is very beneficial. And but no, I haven't seen any company which has asked for a minor with CSE. There was one company though which asked for the civil students for civil and mechanical that if they have a particular minor, then they can apply. But that was the only company that I saw which asked for a minor. And yeah, minor is actually a very easy way out to understand the four subjects before you actually prepare. You will at least have an idea. So when you're sitting for placements, those 2 months when you sit, you will have an idea of what those four subjects are, so that when you're preparing for your coding, whether you're going to use HackerRank as your platform or like lead code, you know these subjects, you know what arrays are, what strings are, or what a particular question lies under which topic. So that is how minor it will be helpful. Yeah.
Thank you, Mahima. Nidhi, do you want to add something to this?
I think Mahima covered it. Even I haven't come across a single company that asked for minor certification. It's just something that I mentioned in my introduction since I had done it anyway. Yeah.
Okay, now moving on to the next question. Which ECE subject should a student focus on appearing for technical, non-technical, and core interviews? I would like to ask Pratap to answer this question.
Yeah, so on the technical side, you would have to be ready to answer questions in this domain. So I think we would start with CODD, which is computer organization and digital design. So that would basically cover how memory works and how a system, how a computer works. And digital design would cover what you have, like digital electronics, like gates, basic gates, their operation and stuff like that. And if you're aiming for analog roles, so analog roles is where you would have to sort of concentrate on your transistors like BJTs, and you have MOSFETs, and also op amps. So these op amps questions is what usually that's where companies ask the most. So I think you would have to cover op amps, and so this op amps is really not in our syllabus as a part of our curriculum. So I think you would have to go through some online resources. I think there's a lot of books on op-amps and maybe some YouTube videos or courses which would help you. One more thing that would sort of boost your confidence in this analog sort of domain is if you work with those components yourself. So while you're doing your projects under any prof or under a guidance or as a part of a course, so if you work with these components and you know the know-hows on, so you would have studied how the behavior of a component works. But if you've seen that in person on an oscillator, not oscillator, sorry, an oscilloscope, so that it would be better in my sense. And so when you sit for a core interview, you would have questions that come from control systems, your embedded systems, and coding as well, like C programming and Verilog and stuff. So you have to know these to clear these online tests. So these online tests would cover all these topics. So like I mentioned, digital, analog, control systems, embedded systems, and coding. Sometimes digital signal processing as well. So so what have you studied as a part of your second and third year, which would be your semesters 3, 4, 5, and 6? These subjects are what companies usually ask in their online tests per se. So for 4 core jobs. And in the interviews, so some basic questions on these subjects that I've mentioned, and also based on your projects and based on what you've done in these 4 years and what projects or what, if you've published any paper, so what are the technicalities of that paper and what courses you've done. So this is my roundup on for technical roles in specific, what core subjects that you need to know. Yeah.
Thank you, Pratap. Now, a follow-up for that question. What are the most important skills and subjects that companies look for in technical, non-technical, and core? I would like to ask Smrithi to answer this question.
Non-technical, they don't really ask you anything related to your course, which is precisely why I went into the non-technical type of jobs. I didn't understand one word that Pratap just spoke. So you can. What they did ask me was my capstone project, because they really want to understand how you go about, working on projects and stuff. So more than your subjects, if you're going into a purely non-technical role, they'll ask you about your projects, because they will question you. They want you to know how your thought process behind things and how you think, and all those things matter more than your subject knowledge, because those things can be learned on the job for non-technical roles. Important skills will be definitely interpersonal skills and crisis management, problem solving, and things like that. So put yourself in situations that are very high pressure, like the highest pressure that you can think of is like going into like a AT organizer role in college. That's the max pressure you can handle, and or going to like different clubs and try to be super active in them and try to handle all those things, as well as your curriculum. That itself will signify that you're able to take in a lot of stress. And time management, they'll be able to assess your time management skills from that, because you're handling so many things at once apart from your core curriculum, which itself is very heavy. But yeah, I don't think I can add any more insight into subjects as such. I think Mahima can maybe elaborate on that.
Yeah, so when we talk about important skills with respect to technical based on an IT background, I think that they mostly want you to approach a problem. How you're going to, whether you're using a brute force approach or an optimization, you always start off with a brute force approach to tell the interviewer that, yes, I know this, I know how to approach a particular problem. Based on how even if your brute force solution is, even if you approach a brute force solution in a way that he can easily accept it or he is able to understand, I don't think there are interviews where, I don't think there's any interviewer who might ask you for an optimization. But if if he wants to know, if he's a person who wants to understand how deep you can go into a particular problem, then he might ask you to optimize it. So I feel like in this particular aspect for a technical experience, I think DA is one of the most important subjects you might have to know. Even though data structures and data structures and applications are there, they are just telling you what that particular structure does. But when you take DA as a subject in your technical for IT, then I think that is the subject that helps you or tells you what algorithm you can use or how you can sort a particular problem or how you can solve a particular problem. And the one more skill that I've seen in a lot of like other people that tell is your database, the DBMS subject that you have. So there are several rounds where they test how you can design a particular database. It's called as low-level design, if I'm not wrong. So they will give you a situation where you have to create your tables and tell like how you can relate it or how you can design a particular website or like how you can design a particular database. So I feel DBMS and DA is one of the most important skill you will need for an IT role. And for the main core role, I think like Pratap has, like briefly summarized what is the main subjects that you need. And one skill I would tell is your speaking skills. Like how Smrithi said, your speaking skills matter a lot. And that's where I feel like a lot, like especially people who are in like the second year or like the first year, you should be able to go into a club so that you have like you're with a group of like-minded individuals. So they will help you to come out of you are doing something out of a course of curriculum, so it will help you talk to other people. So when you're talking to an interviewer, you are more fluent in approaching the problem or in telling him that, yeah, I know this. So speaking is also a very, very important skill in your technical interview as well. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Smrithi and Mahima.
Right. So the next question is, what is the cutoff CGPA we have to maintain for different tier companies? Smrithi and Nidhi, could you answer this question?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, usually this plays more of an important role during summer internships. First of all, there are very few companies that come for ECE. The only one I can remember is Bosch. And there the cutoff, I think most of the cutoffs the cutoffs for most companies was 8.5 and above. However, the situation wasn't the same for placements. The company cutoff as sent in the email would usually be around 7 or 7.5, sometimes even 6.5. But that doesn't mean that is the final cutoff, because especially in the beginning when there are more people who aren't placed, they try to filter out based on GPA. So even if you're allowed to apply, they'll send another list of students who are eligible for online tests. And usually I think even this list has people above 7.5, but there were a couple of companies with even 8.25 and 8.5. So depending on the number of students they want, it changes. So that's little unpredictable. And also the time. So in the beginning, if you see, you'd see that the cutoff is higher when there are more people. And as you go more into the placement season towards September, October, it's better. Like even if your GPA is low, you're eligible to write. However, I suggest that you try to maintain your GPA higher in your first 2 years, because if there is a point of contention, like if that's the only parameter that they look at to decide between candidates to get a particular number of people to write the test.
Right. Smrithi, do you want to add something to this?
I think she covered pretty much everything. I just want to say that non-technical roles, especially if you want to go for a more, not consulting, more into, purely client-facing roles, they don't really check your cutoff. They don't check your CGPA. There's no cutoff as such. They just purely test you on your resume and speaking skills and communication. So if you are looking, I feel like if you're looking to improve your GPA, you should start soon, because it gets harder as the semesters go by. Like it's harder you have to get like a 10 to bring it up by like 2.5 or 1 point. So I think you should start early if you're looking to improve your GPA, and it's very easy to score in your first year. So please score in your first year. Don't take your first year for granted because you're like, oh yeah, college, I'm going to while away time. No, just score off that time and then you can chill later because you'll have a good foundation to begin with.
Thank you, Smrithi. And as a follow up, we have the next question. How much weightage does CGPA have during placements, and how can one boost CGPA? Mahima, could you answer this?
Yeah, so weightage, it totally depends upon the company. Like Nidhi said, they may either ask you like for a 6.5 or a 7.5, but later, as a lot of people actually apply for that particular company, they will filter out based on having above 8. So I feel having 8.5 plus is a sweet spot, and having 8 is a very safe, it's a very safe bet. But keeping your GPA as high as possible is always a plus point because even if you want to apply for your master's later and there is a contention for a particular spot, I think your GPA will come into hand. It shows them, and especially, I feel for masters, when they say that how much weightage is there, I feel like it does play an important role to show how dedicated you are to that particular course that you've taken or to that particular semester that you have done. And in order to, suppose you're not in my first semester, I think I had just just crossed an 8, but in order to like boost up my CGPA, I took electives in a way that will really boost up. So I spoke to a lot of seniors. I have spent like around, I think, 1 hour calls with them, asked like which particular, how is the professor or how is the teacher, what is the pattern of studying for this particular subject. So I think if you don't have a great CGPA in your first 2 semesters, choose your electives, especially when you come to the 5th and 6th semester. That will completely boost your CGPA. Talk to a lot of seniors. Spend time when you have that particular 10 days given to you. Talk to your seniors, ask them their opinion about the teacher or like how is the subject going to be, how are the questions framed, go through question papers, like spend that at least 2 days to ask your seniors what should I take, or if my GPA is not this great, how can I improve it. So I feel like the best way to improve your CGPA is by choosing the right electives. Okay, and yeah, that's how choosing the right electives is one of the main thing. I feel that's how you raise your CGPA in the 5th and 6th. I've seen a lot of people, their CGPA rises in the 5th and 6th semester because it's easier to score in those 2 semesters because you have two main subjects that are your electives. And yeah, that's how I feel like you can boost up your CGPA. That was 5th and 6th semester is what gave me a great boost in my CGPA, and that's how I was like easily being I easily crossed the 8.5 plus spot that I wanted. Yeah, I think Smrithi has raised her hand. So
yeah, I just wanted to add that specific companies have specific cutoffs. Like companies like Walmart, they came in with a cutoff of like 8.5, and then when they sent the shortlist, it was much higher, like 9 plus only CS people, but they had opened it to other. So this is just one example, but many companies had these kind of things. So if you're looking at specific companies that you want to get to, then you should talk to your seniors and understand if your GPA will be in their cutoff based on trends of previous years, because these companies usually follow the same pattern of hiring every year. So you can ask your seniors and see if this is going to be a feasible company for you. And like I'd say, don't have like dream companies and things like that. Just go for specific job profiles that you prefer when as and when the JD comes in. But if you do have something like this, then definitely speak to a lot of seniors to understand if you will get past the first round of cutoffs or not.
Thank you, Mahima and Smrithi. Now, moving on, how to explore which domain you are really interested in. I would like to ask Mahima to answer this question.
yeah, so when you step into ECE, you will basically have few subjects. I think in your 3rd semester, you're introduced to ACD, signals and systems, and I think another communication subject. So when you're studying the subject, or when you have your teachers when they're teaching you, or when you do your particular project in that subject, I feel that's when you will know that you're interested in this particular domain. I feel so for me, I really like signals and systems. So when my in then later, I think the follow-up course for that was digital signal processing. So you will have like for VLSI, a lot of people like ACD, and then their next subject would come up to be Verilog and stuff like, there are the course that has been designed in ECE is in such a way that your third semester follow up, your fourth semester follow up leads to a specialization where you guys will actually find a subject interested. So when you're studying your subjects for ECE, I feel that's when you'll know that, oh yeah, I like this, I prefer this. And in your fifth semester, as like space domain is completely like signal processing and like speech processing. So and like VLSI is completely the Verilog domain. Like it's you working on your hardware, knowing your MOSFETs or your like CMOS. So people who like semiconductors stick to VLSI, and people who like communication domain, they go to the like I think network. So they have subjects such as I think MIMO subjects like that. So you will have subjects in your third and fourth semester which actually will help you to know which domain you're going to choose in your fifth and sixth semester. So that's how you do your domain selection. Like you study the subject, you know which domain, which professor. There are professors who come and teach you, right? So they will tell you their areas of research, and you also have that 2 months of summer that they give you, right? I feel that's the time you actually will realize which specialization, if you want to do in core EC, which specialization you want to do in, or which subject you are most interested in. So feel like those 2 months are very important to actually know which domain you would want to do. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Now, a follow up to that question. What are the ways you can find out which domain EC has the most scope for jobs? Mahima, can you answer those questions?
Yeah. So, which domain has the most number of jobs? So, as you can see, in particular, I think VLSI has comparatively more number of jobs because it is related to semiconductors and chips. And there are certain jobs which, see, when you like a particular subject, when you want to go in a particular domain, go to LinkedIn or research, like put it on Google saying like which companies, you put your areas of interest and you see which companies are there, like for speech processing and speech processing. Yeah, for signal processing, I think Qualcomm and Qualcomm is, like a pretty popular company which is there. And so there you put in and see like which companies come under that particular profile, and then you can check whether you like the job that they are doing over there. So that's how you like check into like what are the job aspects that are there. So when you're liking a domain, check into the job aspects as such. But I don't think that you should choose a job completely based on like those areas of research. You might like, when you enter into a job profile, you might like another. So when you have a signal processing, you might like communication is also involved in a particular, you might have to do a communication work there as well. So there you might realize that, yeah, I like this communication domain more than the signal processing domain. So when you like a particular domain, go and see which companies are there, like what companies are there, what is the profile that they are offering in their company. So that's how you see it.
Thank you, Mahima.
Yeah.
Now, I would like to ask Pratap to answer one of the live chat question. How do you start a career in VLSI?
Okay, so VLSI per se, I think it would have 2-3 subdomains inside VLSI. So VLSI could be design, VLSI could be verification, VLSI could be validation. So I think how you start is, I think you would have to start with the basics of digital design and a bit of Verilog and VHDL coding. So I think resources like Verilog HDL by I think Palnitkar would be a good start. And Morris Mano I think is a industry standard which would for all digital designs and logic gates and stuff like that. And like on the verification side, you would have to learn maybe system Verilog. I think you have courses. We had courses for system Verilog as well. And I think like if you're into the new technology that's coming up, so I would suggest that there's a language called Chisel that's really picking up pace. I would say. I mean, as far as I've seen on the internet, it's not really used by any of the big companies out there, because they have all of their code bases in Verilog or VHDL. But you could maybe like explore the use of Chisel, which is again a hardware description language, which you would use to maybe build systems, right? But as a starting person, I think you would have to start with studying books like Morris Manu and stuff on Verilog, and maybe start off by doing some projects under, I think, profs. I think for example, you could do it under Sudhindra sir. He is one of the guys in that domain, and you might want to specialize in nice domain if you're really interested in VLSI jobs. Yeah.
Thank you, Pratap.
Mahima, you wanted to add?
Yeah, so one more way you can find out what domain you're interested is doing a project in that particular domain. So and after doing a project, you can go ask your professor in that particular domain that what is the scope of this? What is the scope of the domain? Like, will I be able to get an industry level experience? So professors also have a lot of contacts with the outside people or with outside research centers. So I feel having a rapport with your professor in a particular domain is also very, very helpful and very, very beneficial. But doing a project in that particular domain, so I think now every particular subject has, you guys have to do a project. So do a project, go to your professors, ask them that in this particular domain, which are the companies that come under, and ask your seniors also, like go to LinkedIn, check up, like put up your domain, put up which companies you like after researching, which so if you're choosing signal processing and then you go to that particular job, you see a company, go to LinkedIn, put the company name, check if any of your seniors are there, any of your alumni is there, and then go text them and be like, how is the work over here, like how do I prepare for this particular job, or does this company actually come to our college? So two of the most few ways that you can do it is do a project, go approach your professors, and also use like the online resources. Like LinkedIn is a very, very powerful source that you can use. You can search the company and then you can find your seniors over there. Go approach your seniors also. Yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
Thank you, Mahima. Pratap, would you like to add something?
Yeah, so along with those books that I mentioned, I think you would have to know a bit about CMOS design as well. So CMOS VLSI design is where you would use MOSFETs to design your digital systems. I think that's one more point that you can maybe start off your VLSI journey with. Yeah.
Keertana, do you have something?
Yeah, so for us, we were offered a few cadence courses for VLSI, digital design, or basics of C, system Verilog. So I think those cadence courses do help, and there's a cadence digital batch program. So I think you can find more about it through Sudhindra sir. He can guide you guys more. Yeah.
Thank you, Keertana and Pratap, for answering our live chat question.
Right. So the next question is, how can one improve coding skills to clear coding rounds in interviews? Deepanjali and Mahima, could you answer this question?
Yeah. So basically, if you have to learn coding, there are three basic things that you'll require. First thing is that in a coding test, you aren't given the question directly. So it's going to be more of a scenario type or a paragraph type question, in which first thing is you have to understand the problem and figure out which concept do you actually have to apply. Is it a graph based problem? Is it a binary tree based problem? So that's, I think, one of the biggest things, most important thing is to understand the problem and which concept do you have to apply to solve it. The second thing is the coming up with the logic. Now there are some standard sets of standard ways of solving these problems. Example, if you're doing sorting, there's bubble sort, there's insertion sort. There are different approaches like sliding window approach, brute force approach. So you will have to know all these popular approaches. There isn't enough time to sit and innovate during the coding test. So you will have to already know these approaches and how they work. So that would be the second thing, the logic. And the third thing is the optimization. So most, if a lot of people have applied for the same role, and there are a good number of students giving this coding test, the next parameter is optimization. That's what they look at. So optimization in terms of both time and space. So you'll have to the algorithm will have to be optimized. And if it's an interview, then your interviewer might also ask you that the code that you've written, can you optimize it and show me? So these are the three things that you'll have to understand to write any coding test. First thing is understanding the problem. Second is the logic that you'll have to apply, and third is how to optimize it. So this is the standard protocol that everybody follows. And for improving coding skills, so you will have to first, the only way of going about this is to attempt a lot of questions. So do not think that you're not prepared for the test, or you might, if you attempt it right now, you might not do well. It's all right. It counts as experience. The more number of questions you're exposed to, the more types of logic you will come across, and then you can thereafter use it in another question. So the only way of doing it is practicing a lot of questions. And first, you should prepare topic wise. So I think data structures topics and algorithm design and analysis topics. These two subject topics you should practice each and every topic, like give it around 3 to 4 days per topic. Once you're well versed with these, you can move on to company wise practice. So there are websites where you get questions that are categorized according to the company. So if the company is coming, say, around next week, so this whole week you should spend on just going through questions that were previously asked in that company's placement test. So topic wise and company wise questions, you should categorize them into these two types and then practice.
Thank you, Deepanjali. Mahima, would you like to add something to this?
Yeah, not much. Like Deepanjali covered most of the points, but one thing I'd like to say is being as quick as possible in coding rounds, because sometimes companies, they have like extremely easy questions. They may be just based on arrays and strings, and they will have aptitude as well. Here, when the questions are extremely easy, they basically shortlist people on how quick you've solved the test, or like how fast you have done the test. And also there are companies that maintain, they put a points over there, like for a particular aptitude questions or for coding questions. When you see that the coding, the aptitude or the coding, when the coding question is extremely easy, your aptitude also comes here, plus how fast you have solved the test. So maintaining speed is very important. When they give you a particular time saying that you have 1 hour, yeah, you can spend the 1 hour, you can take your own time to solve it. But at the same time, I think keeping the time in your mind saying that you have 1 hour, you should also think the amount of competition you have with the other people as well. Because if you're an ECE student who's competing with a CS student, obviously the CS student has more practice in solving the problem faster. So you also should think that, yes, I'm competing with other CS students, and I also should solve the problem faster. And also to improve coding skills, time complexity is very, very important. There are times where you will like suppose you use the sort command in Python, but there is a time constraint that comes there. So you should use an approach where you shouldn't, you should be able to solve that I think in O log n time, you should solve it faster. So time complexity is also one of the main thing. And as Deepanjali said, solving problems is the only way that you can improve your coding skills. And if you're a beginner, I suggest using HackerRank and then move on to LeetCode. So it's easier. You will get a boost of confidence that, yes, I can solve problems in this particular website. So I can go, like progress to LeetCode. That's how I've seen a lot of people do. And that's how you can improve your coding skills. Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Mahima. And about the resources which you can use to improve your coding skills, Nidhi, would you like to talk about this too?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, you'll have to know language, like choose a particular language which you'd want to stick to. I preferred C++, and based on that, So I think the first step to go about is practicing your DSA. The sooner you start, the better. Like I started properly during the summer between my third and after my third year, before my fourth year. But I had also tried starting many times before. It was just that I wasn't consistent with my practice and knowing things. Even minors, I had an idea of everything because of my minors. But beyond that, you also need to know the subjects CN, DBMS, OS. And other than this, you'll also come across a few companies that ask for OOPS. So the best way to know what to prepare is on Geeks for Geeks, you just see interview experiences, which also has a description of what the first round is. And based on it, just keep adding to the list of subjects that you have to cover. So start with these 4 basic subjects. What I did was I had, I think, uh, Apni Kaksha or somewhere I got a hold of these consolidated notes for each of these subjects. They were meant for placements itself. That's not enough, but that was the base for me. Like if you want to revise like just before an interview or just see if you've covered all topics, that was a nice base to have. Try to go through your course syllabus. That's really good actually, if you can, especially for computer networks, because it's more in depth. Computer networks, OS. Yeah, so minors would help here because you have all this uh, consolidated information in the form of slides and units in an orderly fashion that you can go through. But yeah, I use these notes. They were around 10 pages for each subject. That's what I first used. And with respect to coding, I tried to follow. You get these SD sheets, or I don't know what you call them, but sheets, they're Excel sheets with problems belonging to each topic. There's one, I think, called 450 Problems by Love Bubber or something like that. There's that. And there's also a website called neatcode.io where it's very interactive. It's maybe more fun if you use that. So for each topic, you can set the difficulty level, you can set the number of problems you want to do, and it gives you a set of problems for each topic, and you just go one by one. It also has the solution and a video solution linked. So that was very helpful. And other than this, I think talking to your seniors is very important. So what I used to do is LinkedIn is very helpful. I've been messaging seniors on LinkedIn since after my second year. Even if I wasn't actively preparing for placements or anything as such, I was collecting information that would be useful later. I actually have a list of 10 questions, like a set of 10 questions that I used to just copy paste and like modify based on the company and send to seniors and ask them to reply in as much detail as they remember, because that would be very helpful. Obviously everyone will tell you, oh, do DSA, do these subjects, but when you know in detail, like I'd say, if you remember the questions that you were asked, please tell me those questions as well. So before each company comes, I'd go on LinkedIn and use the filters to find seniors from college working in that company and ask a set of these questions. And based on that, follow up questions. That would be very helpful. That way, you know what the online assessment is. So, not all the online assessments are only coding, or not all involve aptitude. So it helps to know that beforehand. It helps to know how much time you're going to have and how much, what part of it is going to be aptitude and what part of it is going to be coding. And I think few companies, as Mahima mentioned, the coding is very easy, but you find out that you still don't get in. So in such cases, the situation may be that either they use the CGPA cutoff in the end, or they did it based on your time complexity, space complexity, or on how fast you submitted. So if you can ask your seniors if they have an idea what the basis of this cutoff is or what the criteria for this is, that's really helpful. So I think the problem with starting to prepare is mainly that there's so much information and so many resources that you don't know where to start. So my suggestion would be to ask seniors exactly what they did. Like step by step if they could remember. That's really helpful. And these websites such as Neat Code, which already have consolidated information, would be really helpful.
Thank you, Nidhi. Mahima, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, one more resource that's very helpful is this last minute notes on Cheeks for Geeks. Okay, so they have everything which is summarized. Like these are and Interview Bit is also an amazing resource that I've seen a lot of people use, and a lot of questions. There are a lot of people who say like their first interview question is literally the first question that was asked in Interview Bit. So I've seen a lot of like a lot of people telling that Interview Bit and the last minute notes that are there in Geeks for Geeks. They're also amazing resources for what is it? DBMS, CN, OOPS, and yeah, basically the four main subjects that they cover. So everyone should really look into it who definitely want an IT or like the CS role.
Now, Deepanjali, do you have anything to add on?
Yeah. So regarding the resources, I've spoken to a lot of HR heads, a lot of seniors, and after summarizing what they've told me, it's basically use lead code. Lead code is the most reliable for topic wise practice, and Geeks for Geeks is the most reliable for company wise practice. So as Nidhi mentioned, Geeks for Geeks has this thing called interview experiences, and they basically it's basically a repository of all the experiences that people have had with that company. So basically, it's about the hiring process, how many rounds, and what type of questions. Sometimes they even give you the link to the question that was asked. So if you're aiming for big companies, like if you're aiming for Amazon, then there are around 300 to 400 interview experiences. And say, suppose each person links 3 questions, then you have a huge repository. And if you just practice those questions itself, there is a very high chance that you will get one out of those, right? So Geeks for Geeks for company wise, lead code for topic wise, and also there's this thing that our college conducts called PPT. I think it'll be starting in Jan mid. So they basically give you MCQ test as well as a coding test, which is conducted on their Do Select platform. So basically, there are 2 tests in the week: one MCQ test, one coding test, and the MCQ test is like a CBT, like how we write our CBTs, and it's topic wise. So this isn't just for computer science; it's also for electronics. So topic wise tests every single week with different topics each week, and coding test is on a platform which is very similar to the platforms that the actual companies use. So I think to summarize, lead code, Geeks for Geeks, and PPT should be more than enough, more than sufficient. You can explore other options, but then again, it depends on the how much time you have. Yeah.
Thank you, Deepanjali. Nidhi, do you have something to add on?
Yeah. So when you're solving questions, when you're solving so many questions, especially if you're not consistent, it's very hard to remember how to go about the problem. And I feel like it's important to keep refreshing yourself, even the previous topics that you've covered or even the previous problems that you've done. So for this, what I used to do is I had an Excel sheet, like the SD sheet, whatever, and I had columns where I'd comment in the solution, and I'd also color code like whether I was able to solve it myself on the first try, whether I found it hard, red for hard, green for easy, stuff like that. So when I had an interview right before, it was very easy to go through the problems and go about the solution in my head to see if I'm taking the right approach, and then check my solution which I had commented in the sheet. So a way to keep track of what you've done so far is also very helpful, rather than going in loops and always ending up at square one. And yeah,
Thank you,
also
Nidhi.
as Mahima mentioned, interview bit is very, very helpful. For each subject you have, I think around the top 40 interview questions asked for this or something. So that was extremely helpful as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. All of these resources that you guys mentioned, I I'm pretty sure that it's going to be very helpful for everyone watching the stream. So we will compile all these links and put it in the description so that it's easily available for everyone who wants to access them. So yeah, thank you guys. Thank you everyone.
One last question for today's episode. How important are coding languages like C++, Python, etc. if you are looking for a core job? I would like to ask Keertana to answer this question.
Yeah. A core job doesn't only mean digital electronics or analog electronics. Coding does improve analytical skills as well. So, and for digital electronics, system Verilog, that's just coding. So, in a few interviews, and a few companies do ask basic coding. Write a function for Fibonacci series, or how do you implement mux in Verilog. So I think coding is important. You should know your languages like C++, Python for the computer jobs, and for hardware jobs, for core jobs, you do have to know system Verilog. The basics, how to design a mux, an adder, full adder. Yeah, that's it, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you, Keertana. Now, this brings us to the end of today's Placement Tales episode. Aditi, would you like to take over?
Yeah, I would like to thank all the panelists and audience for their time. Your active participation has been really helpful in making this episode a success. Lastly, would you guys like to add anything or any advice for the students who are watching?
Yeah, so first of all, it's going to be a really stressful time. So just remember that there are going to be a lot of companies coming in, and you should take your time. Choose. Don't write all the tests because it will get very overwhelming very fast. Pick and choose what jobs you want and what roles you want, so that you space it out and you're able to prepare for everything properly and attempt everything properly. If you really want a company and if you don't get it, don't be disheartened, because it's not about you not having the skills or you not being qualified enough for the job. It's more about that day's luck and that day's situation. So everything is very day based, and if there's a lot of luck in that comes into play with the whole placement process. So just have a lot of do something for your own mental health, because it'll be a very stressful time. Just go for a walk every day, or have one constant thing every day that you're going to do, so that you don't get stressed out too much. And talk to your friends, because all your friends are going to be in the same boat as you. And I feel like if you have a lot of friends in CS and they get placed before you, don't become stressed out because of that, because they inherently have the skill set already, and they don't have to put in the additional effort that you have to put in, especially if you're sitting for IT roles. So just go in with a calm mind, and make sure you talk to your friends and be very I don't know, just take everything with a pinch of salt, so that you don't lose your mind during the whole process. That's all. And all the best.
Keertana, would you like to say something?
Yeah, so like Smrithi said, you should not be disheartened, and you should take it in an easygoing way. And also, the most important thing, you should not always look for tier one companies, not because it's not the pay, it's about the role and what you're interested in. End of the day, you should be enjoying what you do. And a good company, yes, good startups, and any MNC, good ones with a good role, what you're interested in, that's all matters, not the pay and how many interviews you attended. Those are just experiences which will add on for the future interviews.
Thank you, Keertana. Nidhi?
Yeah, so adding to what Smrithi and Keertana said, it's an extremely stressful time. So you have to don't let it completely consume you, or if you find something that you're doing every day, exercise, working out, anything, or reading a book. Make sure you do that every day, some break from what you're doing here. And also, it's very dependent on the company and that day, as they said. There are many times when companies make mistakes and they make it's not in your favor, but the faster you accept that and the faster you move on from that, the better you're able to do. And you can make a list of everything that prevented you from getting the previous job or getting through the previous interview. Just add it to that list, whether it's a subject or whether it's a skill set or whether it was something on your resume that you weren't able to answer. Just keep adding on to that list and get to it when you can. And yeah, everything is practice basically. So companies keep coming. We still get emails for companies for full-time roles, so we have to be patient and just not let peer pressure affect us, I guess.
Thank you, Nidhi. Mahima?
Yeah, like Nidhi said, peer pressure shouldn't affect us. And one more thing is, college conducts a lot of hackathons. So I feel participating in these hackathons also give you an edge in what you want to do in your upcoming semesters or as a part of your capstone project. I've seen a lot of people who who do hackathons, and then later they want to build upon that hackathon, like that particular product in their capstone. So take part in hackathons. Spes gives you ample number of opportunities to actually help you discover what you want to do in your later semesters or in your later career. So use the opportunities given by the college. Also, there are multiple number of clubs, there are multiple number of hackathons that go on happening. So take time to put in your effort in the college work as well as into extracurricular activities, because you never know, they will help you in one way or another. Because I have seen a lot of people who take part in hackathons, and after that they have forward, they take it up as their capstone project. They've built upon it, they have published their papers in really good conferences, and it gives you an edge, because when in your interview, when you tell about your particular project, about your capstone, they know how passionate you've been about that particular project. They know that you've been committed to this. So you have an edge that says that, yeah, this particular individual or this candidate will definitely be, dedicated to the role or the offer that we're giving them. So taking part in college events such as hackathons is really, really important as well, I feel. And yes, the placement whole process is a little pressurizing, is definitely a little pressurizing. But as Nidhi said, take up some other activity, like go for a stroll every day, do something else apart from just sitting and studying throughout the entire of 7 semesters. It will really help you, and have a particular timeline, like today I would be covering this topic along with another difficult topic. So solve easy problems, hard problems, keep talking to your seniors. As Nidhi said, LinkedIn is an amazing source, and seniors are really helpful. They will reply back to you. If not today, definitely another person will reply back to you. So having a communication with your seniors is very, very important. And all the best to all the juniors. Yeah, so hope this event is helpful to everyone. So yeah.
Thank you, Mahima. Thank you, Pratap.
Yeah, so I just want to make a point saying I want to compare, you have your big rigs versus your startup. So you would have, if you were to join a startup as a core job, I think you would have a very much steeper learning curve as compared to a big company where you would be a small part in a very big project and you would have to do specific tasks. But in the case of a startup, you would have to sort of have an all-round development, and you would have to do much more tasks than what you're allocated, and that would help you learn. I think in the first few years of your job, or as you start up as a fresher out of college, I think it would be better if you would have the learning than you just do what task is allocated, and this would help you in your masters as well when you apply. That's my thought on core versus core companies, on big rigs versus startups. Yeah.
Thank you, Pratap. Deepanjali?
Yeah, just a few concluding notes. First thing, time management is key. You won't be able to even get started with this if you aren't good at time management. So that's the first thing. Next, write all tests because you never know what is going to happen on that day. It all depends on how many people have applied, the profile of other candidates, how what is the company's requirement, and it might come in unexpected ways, like this hackathon that I got placed through. Right. So just trust the process is the bottom line. Uh, Go with the flow, write all the tests, and you have to learn how to manage your time. I think if you have these many things, it everything will automatically get sorted.
Thank you, Deepanjali. Smrithi?
Yeah, one more thing that I wanted to add. As Pratap said, that startup thing, not only for core jobs, I think it's holds good for any role like IT or even non-technical. Another thing, since your placement season is directly coinciding with your majority of your capstone, it's very important for you to pick a good team and a good guide. So make sure that you do it with people that you know will do work, because if you end up in a team that is stressful because and people are not doing work and you have to pull more weight than the others, then you won't be able to focus on your placements, or it'll get very overwhelming very quickly. And also, while picking a guide, make sure you talk to a lot of seniors and understand how each guide is during the whole process, because some guides are very hands-on, some guides are not hands-on at all. And also make sure that you pick a project that you are interested in, so that you don't just take it because, oh, it'll look amazing on my resume, and then you get very overwhelmed with it during the whole project process. Just make sure that you take something you're interested in and you're confident of being able to complete, so that that stress is at least reduced along with your placement stress, because both are directly coinciding with each other. So yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
Thank you, Smrithi. Overall, thank you, everyone. That was a great time, and I'm sure everybody found it very helpful. Thank you all. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you in our next episode.
Hi guys, can you all just stay on the call for 2 minutes?
Yeah.